I wanted to ask about Artesh, and if you could illuminate, if you have anything you can shed light on, both on status of mid and lower ranks in Artesh of where things stand, and then on Iranians looking at that, because I think one time when you were away with Goldie's stream, John Peacekeeper, if you know him, who's from within Iran, he stated that from his own personal experience, he did not feel safe or trust Artesh. And I've not heard that ever before from an Iranian. I understand that the top people at Artesh, that the former Khamenei, that he cleared house and wanted very regime IRGC loyal people. And so when we look at our Durka bingo card, like none of those people work. But which I enjoy game of Durka. But as we go lower, I'm just wondering if you can shed any light. I'm sorry. So go ahead.
Okay, so great question. So for context for other people here, the Islamic Republic has two main different military units. One is the IRGC, and the other one is the Artesh. The IRGC was created by Khomeini. The Artesh predates the Islamic Revolution of 1979, and it exists. It's supposed to be the royal Artesh, the royal army of the king. But then now it's just the Artesh, right? So the IRGC was created by Khomeini as an anti-coup measure so that the Artesh doesn't do a coup d'etat against the Islamic Republic. And Khomeini wanted to make sure that the IRGC was never political and all they do is basically military stuff, right? But when Khomeini died, we have this on recording that Khomeini wanted to make sure that IRGC will never be political. But now the IRGC is not just a military; it's the biggest economic power within Iran, and it's also the biggest political power within Iran. And the military part is just part of it. And over the years, you can see the budget of the Artesh shrinking and the budgets of the IRGC increasing over the years. So the IRGC is considered to be a lot more ideological, and the Artesh is supposed to be more about Iran. This is the perception people have, and I'll talk about whether or not that's true or not. But the perception is that the IRGC is about Islam, and the Artesh is supposed to be about Iran. The Artesh is about protecting Iran's borders, and the IRGC is about exporting the Islamic Revolution globally to like basically make the whole world Islamic. So the problem is that the leaders of the Artesh over the years have been replaced with the people who have from people within IRGC, right? So if you basically want to look at this in a simplified way, to easy to understand way, like so you have IRGC leaders, the IRGC body, the Artesh leader, the Artesh body, right? So people say for the IRGC leader, it's all Durka jihadi people, and the body is also very ideological, jihadi minded, right? Mostly at least. There are some defections from IRGC as well, so we can't say all of them, but mostly. Within the Artesh, they see the leadership is basically the same as IRGC. In fact, they are IRGC. The understanding is that the leadership of the Artesh are people picked from the IRGC, so that is also ideological now. But it's the only hope that Iranian people have is the body of the Artesh, the people that maybe not the highest ranking people, basically everyone else, that they're still loyal to Iran, that some of them might be still loyal to Pahlavi, that many of them consider the Islamic Republic to be an occupying force. This has been something that many people have said is the case for many years. The problem is that it might be true, but we don't have any data supporting this. The one data that you just pointed out. So here's the thing: there are people who might have the data. One of them is Princess of Pahlavi, because apparently, like we have tens of thousands of people who have defected from the regime to Princess of Pahlavi's team. So it would be interesting to see what we don't know, but it would be interesting to see if most of them were from the Artesh rather than from IRGC, for example, right? That would indicate that if most of them are from the Artesh, that would support this theory. One thing that is might suggest that this is true is exactly what you pointed at, which is from our bingo card. If you look at all the people who are dead, right? If you go to the armed forces, you can see from the IRGC, the Israelis have taken out so many of the leadership of the IRGC. these are the skulls, right? But if you look at the Artesh, which here says the army, it means the army is Artesh, right? You can see not a single person has been eliminated by Israelis. Not a single person. And it's not like that's a hard thing for them to do. Like it's really easy to find and take these people out for Israel. So some people think that this is an Israeli way to encourage Daesh to at some point do a coup by showing that they're not taking them out because maybe they're encouraged, they're relying on them at some point for a coup. And this is the reason why people keep talking about whether the Artesh is actually loyal to Iran and maybe at some point will be joining the Iranian people in their and do a coup against the Islamic Republic, because that would be the cleanest way to do this revolution, right? Instead of having to arm the Iranian people, if we just have the Artesh do the coup, there would be a lot less. It would be a lot less messy. It would be a lot less bloody, right? And this is what something that Princess of Pahlavi has been trying to work on, and this is why twice Princess of Pahlavi has come out and called upon the Artesh and shamed them actually for why they haven't come out already. I wish I had that tweet already. So these are the reasons why people think that maybe the Artesh will be loyal to the people, but we have also some data suggesting that maybe that's too much wishful thinking. One of them is that during early January, we didn't see the Artesh defending the people, right? With the massacre in early January, and so many people are like, "Where's the Artesh? Why, when the Iranian people were being massacred, why didn't they show up to protect them?" That's one. Some people say that maybe because they were disarmed by the regime. Another thing is that tweet, that X post from Princess of Pahlavi, saying like, "How could you?" Oh, I know when he posted that. If anybody has that post, share it with me in the chat so I could show it to people. He was talking about, hold up, Pahlavi. If I search for Pahlavi Iraq, would that show up? Because he was basically shaming the Artesh, saying, "Why are you not defending Iran against these proxies coming into our country? Like you were fighting to defend Iran against an Iraqi invasion, and now these people are in our streets and you're just watching them occupy our country and you're not doing anything about it." That's, if I had that post, that would be so good. Let me see.
I think I will find it. Let me go to the responses in the meantime.
Okay.
Sketch wanted to respond?
Yes, I was able to find the article I was talking to you about Artesh not getting support with medicine and medical help. They're not getting as many bullets. Maybe they don't want Artesh to have bullets. And they're also not getting supplies like food. Remember, we said, yeah, they're going to support the military more than the people. But if they have to choose a military, they're not going to split it even. They're going to give more to the IRGC than the Artesh. And I think that division is becoming clearer and clearer every day, especially with the ammo. Why don't you want to give the Artesh ammo? Why do their rifles not have bullets? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so
I'll link the
that might,
articles in the chat.
okay, that might be the reason why they're not showing up. We did, before any of this happened, we did see some Artesh people come out and hold the lion and sun flag, and then they were arrested. We did some videos like that. And Princess of Pahlavi is saying that we have a lot of defections from them. There is also a theory from Murad Vaisi, like Murad Vaisi, and the Iranian analyst, somebody in the chat of his live stream asked him, like, where is the Artesh? Why are they not helping? And his response was like, they will join the people close to the end. Like, it's not the time right now. That's what he said. That's his analysis, at least.
Okay,
This is a great question. Oh, you found it?
I think I found the video in Persian. I don't remember if there was a version where he spoke English. Oh, Ali also found something. Okay, let's look at what Ali has.
Let me see. You guys are awesome. Thank you, guys. Where is it? Where's Ali? Here it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me just read that to you guys. So this, to me, this shows some disappointment, right? Which means like maybe things didn't go the way that we were hoping, right? So Princess of Pahlavi posted this, and thank you for finding this, by the way. Thank you both of you for looking for it. Saying to the armed forces of Iran, you are the heirs to the legacy of the patriotic and honorable commanders of this land. From Arya Barzan. From okay, thank you. I need to from Arya Barzan, Bahram, Chobin, and Serena to Babak, Khwaramdin, Yakubli, and Maziar to Jahanbani, Khosrowand, and Rahimi. How can you remain silent and inactive in the face of the brazen presence and boasts of foreign agents and criminals affiliated with the Islamic Republic in the streets of Iran, from Hashd al-Shabi and Hezbollah of Lebanon to Afghan and Pakistani terrorists? Before your very eyes, the Islamic Republic and its terrorist repressive IRGC have slaughtered tens of thousands of the purest and bravest sons and daughters of this country, and each day send more to their deaths. These occupiers of Iran's soil, driven by destructive and apocalyptic madness, have brought their country to the brink of ruin. How have you closed your eyes to these realities and withdrawn from your duty to defend the nation and the people? How will history and the future generation of Iran judge you? Remember your national and patriotic oath of commitment. Step forward, defend the honor and credibility of Iran's national army against the Islamic Republic and its foreign mercenaries. And to you, the great nation of Iran, with a loud voice, demand that the army fulfill its national role. Call on them to carry out their duty to the homeland and the people. Before it is too late, stand together with the nation and save Iran. Long live Iran, Reza Pahlavi. So if you look at the Persian one, because you might think, is he talking about the Artesh? Because he says armed forces here. But if you actually look at the Persian, yes, he's saying Khatab Arteshian. Because he also mentioned, like, he also made it against the IRGC. So he sees the Artesh against the IRGC. And also here, Naksham. So the English says like the national duty of the army. But again, if you look at the Persian, he's saying Artesh.
Okay, and then Casey wanted to respond. I'm guessing your microphone still doesn't work. Do you think the Prince and Trump are working together behind the scenes? They're working towards the same goal.
I know there has been communication and some level of cooperation, but we don't know the level. When you say working together, well, any form of communication between his team and President Trump's team, Princess Pahlavi's team, even this could be seen as cooperation, and that would be the lowest level of cooperation. The highest level of cooperation would mean that continuous communication and planning together. That would be the highest level of cooperation, right? So if you even consider the lowest level of communication and planning to be cooperation, I'm sure there's some level of it that exists. Also, we know that because Princess Pahlavi's messages to the Iranian people before certain events that happened suggest that he had access to certain information that only the Americans and Israelis could knew. And that suggests that there was some level of coordination and cooperation happening, but we don't know the extent of it. We don't know how high level it is. That we don't know. And there's no way to know, in my opinion. But I
Can
do
you hear
also
me?
understand. Yes,
Mhm.
we can hear you. But one last thing I want to say, I do understand why some
Okay.
people would want to emphasize that the cooperation is high, because especially to Iranian people, because the Iranian people right now are, a lot of them are dealing with a crisis of hope, because after Khamenei's death, many of them expected that Iran would be free by now, and it's not. And if so many Iranian people feel maybe they're being abandoned. So sometimes the narrative that the cooperation is very high is important just so that we could keep the hope up. Okay, who was talking?
I just didn't think it was. I just didn't think it was a coincidence that Lindsey Graham took the stage right before the Prince in.
You're cutting in and out.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay, let's move on. Maybe you could write it in the chat, and then we could move on forward.
Okay, back to Sophie.
sharpen my question a little bit. Are you able to hear me, Armin?
Yes.
Okay, because it wasn't really answered, and I'm sorry. What I meant was it's frustrating. I'm anxious about how opaque it seems. I trust that there's all this intelligence that's classified from IDF and Mossad and CIA, Crown Prince, and the databases. I trust that. What I'm wondering is we hear about the defections, but I don't understand because I'm comparing it from like an American sense where people who serve in the military, you tend to have a lot of friends still in the military. You still talk to them. And if everybody is, they serve at some point, the men in Iran, I'm wondering why it's so deafeningly silent. Like we're not hearing things come out through Starlink. Like we're not hearing what's actually going on in there other than these scattered defections. I'm hearing about the shortages, like how they can't go to the hospital because it's reserved for IRGC. And then my other part of it was to ask about ordinary Iranians, because as I said, John Peacekeeper, who's just one, but he's inside Iran, and he said that he'd had bad experiences, he didn't trust them. But that seems to be a really critical part for the ground forces for the Iranian people to be liberated.
I understand your frustration. The problem is that it's really hard for us to gather that data. These are all anecdotal, right? So we have anecdotal examples of Artesh people being anti-regime, wanting to defect, being loyal to Pahlavi, wanting to protect the people, right? And we also have anecdotal experiences of bad experiences, right? What we don't have is statistics. And it's also really hard to even get high number of anecdotal experiences given that the punishment for this is death. So you're like, we're not hearing a lot. That's the difference between these soldiers and American soldiers. American soldier coming out saying, I don't like President Trump. They're not gonna probably not gonna get executed for it, right? So an Artesh soldier coming out and saying that that is basically treason and punishable by death, right? So that's one reason why you might not be able to gather as much information as you want to be able to answer this. I know that doesn't answer your question, but the problem is that we can't answer the question because we don't have enough data, and this is why so many people are theorizing about this rather than having empirical data to come up with a conclusion. And that's why you're not getting an answer because I don't have an answer. Does that make sense? Is anyone
Okay,
talking?
and one more
Yeah.
response, and then we move on from Jose. Okay, if Jose
Any-
is responding, I'll give the one more
Okay.
response to Sketch.
uh,
Oh, Jose, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that. Had a issue with the phone there for a second. Okay. I think what you have to remember, Armin, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Artesh is not a professional army. It's a conscript army, correct? Almost drafted.
so we have both. We have it's
Okay.
mix of both. Yeah.
Okay. But what percentage is what? Because I understand my brother having 22 years in the Navy, having a fellowship group that I've yet to meet all of them, although they've been trying. But my nephew was only in the Air Force for 10 years, and his group is his squadron mates, and that's about it. So it's one of those things where just because you have contacts doesn't mean they want to contact you. Okay. Because I know a lot of them have gone their separate ways and things like that there. So I don't know how much communication will be with Artesh and former Artesh members, especially if the former Artesh members technically deserted, because that's a problem whether you're loyal or not, or it can be conceived as a problem. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
So I got the answer to your question. So the Artesh is a hybrid force consisting of both professional long-term career officers and conscripted soldiers. So professional personnel, roughly 25 to 30% of the force. These are the career. These are the officers and NCOs who provide the technical and command structure. The conscripts basically drafted roughly 70 to 75% of the force. Under the law, under the Islamic Republic law, most males are required to serve a mandatory military service period, usually around 24 months. and the Artesh absorbs the largest portion of these draftees. So 70 to 75%.
Okay.
Okay,
All
we
right.
gotta move on. We have one more person on the list, Ryan.
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
Hello. I actually go by No Borders, so if you've ever seen No Borders in the chat, that's me. I was wondering your opinion on this, and what even Jeffrey, I know he's got some knowledge in this. But when the battle resumes and we start doing more decapitating strikes, if we were to force or shift to maybe a little bit more on who they might try to pick to be the supreme leader later on, because the cardboard cutout's gonna it's gonna it's gonna go pretty quick, but if it's still alive. But I'm wondering is if you do a little bit more decapitation strikes on the people that would be almost a for sure for the next person in charge, if when it's time for America to stop with the airstrikes and whatnot, and essentially the final battle to begin, would it be smarter for the people to sit back and wait for the IRGC, what's left of it, to start to eat themselves? And then when they're attacking each other, you ambush the guy who's attacking the other guy, and then you take their weapons, and then you wait for that to happen again. You cherry pick, not you don't help one side out or another. You try and burn both sides as much as possible, and you try and ambush them, and you just make it so nothing can happen. And then boom, everybody comes out on the streets after you got enough weapons, and you run through them bad boys.
So you asked Jeffrey that, right?
That's for both of you, because you're
Oh.
Iranian, so you know what's going on, and Jeffrey's got military experience. So
yeah, this is more of a military question. Yeah, I don't know exactly what the best military operation would be to once the airstrikes resume, but before Jeffrey responds, the only issue with that is the only issue that I could think of is that maybe I'm wrong about this. That seems like it's going to take a long time, and I just think
not if Trump
yeah,
starts tweeting about working with somebody on the inside. I feel that's really big in that plan. I forgot to state that. Also, the reason why I think this is important is because if you just end without something like that, the IRGC can just then turn on the people and start going at it, because they don't have to worry about the bombs coming anymore. They got their proxies in the state. So I'm just wondering if this isn't the more sensible thing to get them to a point where they're eating at each other. They cannot focus on the people, and then the people eat them from the outside.
So what would be if I'm an IRGC commander, what would be my motivation to start shooting at other IRGC units, for
We
example?
don't agree on who's in charge.
Yeah, but if I'm an IRGC commander, I would know that as soon as this internal war starts, that would be the end of us. Like I would have enough foresight to understand that if our political infighting turns into military infighting, that is the end of us. I would know that. I would know that this is basically going to bring down the entire regime.
I think you only have to hit a couple more high-ranking people to have people who aren't as smart and intelligent as that put in those positions and thinking that they are the new badass and they need to do something on them. They need to be the big balls. They need to be the big swinging D. You know what I mean? They need to be the one that needs to bring this to fruition. And that's where I think they screw themselves. The end fighting.
So we're hoping that they're retarded enough to basically fall for this. That's what this plan requires.
Yeah.
So somewhat okay.
I think we got a good shot, bro.
Yeah, I know. I'm not disagreeing. But let's see what Jeffrey has to say, because this is more of a military stuff rather than a political one. Jeffrey, what do you think?
So it's a very interesting question, and it's not without it has some validity to it. Just so I understand, when military operations resume, which it looks like they might, to target a lot of the remnant leadership of the IRGC to exacerbate the fragmentation that's already existing. And so setting up the pretext for like an intra IRGC bait and bleed so they kill each other. And then that would sit there. It's almost like then the Artesh would sit there and wait until they get to wait to whoever's the winner, then shoot the winner.
Exactly.
So that's not without its merit. Here's the issue. The issue is just as Armin had said. So probably protracted, probably would be something like a intrastate sectarian conflict similar to, say, Syria, where it destroys all the critical infrastructure and Iranians are caught in the crossfire and or killed or wounded or maimed via secondary and tertiary effects of that kind of intra-IRGC conflict. Now, the counter to that is the IRGC, it's better than that. The IRGC all in unison gunning down Iranians, civilians. And that's very true. That's a really tricky, that's a leveraging that and like waiting for that to like Deus Ex Machina eliminate the Mullah regime. Armin knows more about the cultural and organizational culture than I do, because he's of Iranian descent. I mean, I can never match his insight on that. It just seems like there would be a lot of moving variables to that. I will say that the biggest push is to support track 2 material support efforts, including kinetic efforts and training lawful unconventional combatants, hopefully about 20,000 of them ish. And then I won't say go through all of it, and use them as hunter killer teams and or counter death squads to eliminate the Basiji remnants and or IRGC remnants. That might be better. That said, you're talking about 8 months of training, probably $7.9 billion in funding, 18 months total. You're looking for shake and bake, getting something done real quick. The reason the Artesh, and correct me if I'm wrong, Armin. So the Artesh was created by the Shah, and when the Mullah regime and the red-black fuckers that did what they did and took down His Highness's father and the noble house of Pahlavi, or let's say displaced them, the Mullah regime disempowered the Artesh because they didn't trust them, and that's why they created the IRGC. And that's why the Artesh gets all the, at least in the beginning, they got, if anything, hand-me-downs, very little ammunition, almost no medical supplies. Am I wrong in that?
Yeah, they get their budgets cut, and the IRGC's their budgets keeps increasing every year. Yeah, so the IRGC is the ideal army that the Islamic Republic was, but the IRGC was created as an anti-coup measure against the Artesh.
Okay, we're already over time, so maybe Armin wanted to say something, and then we can.
Because sorry. Yeah. So I just wanted to respond to Ryan again, because I was thinking about what you're saying. This is the issue, that if you want what you're saying to work, going back to the political, this is the problem with making that work. Okay. So we have a lot of division right now within the Islamic Republic. Do you guys see my mouse? You do, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So the problem is that the divisions that we're seeing, okay, is not within the IRGC mostly, right? So the divisions that we're seeing is IRGC versus, like, maybe the reformers, IRGC versus the president, IRGC versus Ghalibaf. Ghalibaf used to be IRGC, but he's not IRGC right now. So IRGC versus Ghalibaf. Okay, IRGC versus this, IRGC versus that, IRGC maybe versus, I don't know. Yeah, no, not that's basically it. IRGC versus Ghalibaf, IRGC versus the president, IRGC versus some of the reformers over here. And what we were discussing earlier, what people are hoping for is IRGC versus the Artesh. Okay, this army over here. Okay, but I haven't seen many people talking about IRGC versus IRGC, because we haven't seen any signs yet of inter IRGC divisions. I'm not saying we're never going to see it, but we haven't so far. I mean, we saw at some point this guy Ali Jafari, a huge internal fight between Ali Jafari and Ghalibaf back in the day. I mean, again, Ghalibaf is considered to be somewhat IRGC, and we know Ghalibaf is close to Abdullahi, so maybe that is some division, that IRGC against Ghalibaf. But these are minor divisions. This is not
what if you were taking out people like the guy on the Guardian Council next to the number 31? I think he's got the white. Yep, go down. He's in the Guardian Council. He's next to the number 30. Yep, Arafi.
Yeah, Arafi would be the highest likelihood of being the next supreme leader if
That's
Mujtaba is dead or killed. Okay,
that's
so
what I'm
what?
saying. If we start taking out those types of guys, and then we take out a couple of military leaders, and you have the only person left in their spot is a young, strong-headed guy. I think that's my play. That's what I'm talking about.
Here's the thing, but if Mujtaba is dead and you're making Arafi the supreme leader, then the supreme leadership position has become close to irrelevant, like by that point. So it doesn't really matter if you kill the supreme leader after that, because then they will replace one irrelevant person with another irrelevant person, right? So you mentioned the 31 number here. Okay, the main people you need to take out is this 32 people over here. Okay, because Ali Jafari, when he was the head of IRGC, he came up with this design, this mosaic design, which made the IRGC much less centralized and made these 32 provincial IRGC commanders somewhat independent. So that's why if you take out the IRGC commanders, these people will do their thing, right? And the IRGC has been successful in making all of these commanders be somewhat ideologically driven. So that ideology creates like somewhat of a alignment on values. So these 32 commanders, you need to take them out, because this mosaic structure that Jafari created many years ago makes the IRGC somewhat able to continue operating even when they lose leaders. That's what you need to take out. And the best thing you could do is arm the Iranian people, to be honest. If you're looking for doing something against IRGC, honestly, like arm the Iranian people with guns and drones, and
Where's all
train
the
them how
leftover
to.
Liberty pistols?
Okay. We need Ukrainian soldiers. We have already seen this. Ukrainian soldiers were in Syria training the opposition against Assad with drone technology, and that proved to be very effective. That's what we need to do with the Iranian people. We need Ukrainian soldiers in southern Iran, liberate Bandar Abbas, turn that into a base of operations, vet Iranian people. Don't just hand out guns and drones willy nilly to people. Have a vetting process and then a training process, and then give them drones and weapons and start liberating Iran from the south. Keep going up. And then doing it in Bandar Abbas makes a lot of sense, because even before you liberate Tehran, as that army expands, you basically have made the Islamic Republic lose control over the Strait of Hormuz as well. So we have a very short win before you go for the bigger win long term. They should hire me at the White House. That should be the plan. Okay.